And joining me now on Political Connections is Christian Ziegler, the vice chairman of the Florida Republican Party. Welcome back. Good to see you, Christian.
Yeah, great to see you. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Let's talk about these school board races because that was a big deal. DeSantis getting very involved here. He seems very happy with the way the night ended. Feels like he, cleaned house there with his endorsements. What message did the voters send with this vote?
A very loud message, and that loud message is that they support Governor DeSantis and his education plan. And what's so big about this is, people always throw out endorsements and talk about endorsements with campaigns, but there are a couple of things that are totally different here. Is number one, you have a governor weighing in on school board races, down ballot races. You have the guy at the top of the ticket weighing in on the lower races. That's a big deal to see an elected official do that. It was also a big risk by him by signing his name because he believed in these candidates, but signing his name. And there was media across the state that already had the stories written that Governor DeSantis failed and they were excited for these school board races to turn out differently. But at the end of the day, what ended up happening is 25 of his 30 picks either won or moved on. And the reason why that's so big as well is a lot of his picks were, let's remember, they were school board candidates that were new, that were moms that have never been involved politically, and they were going after entrenched incumbents that are also supported by the establishment class that, frankly, the establishment was pushing. And the governor took a big risk, a big gamble, and it paid off. And I think that this is just going to fuel more momentum for the governor heading towards November.
And some of these endorsements were on boards that have leaned either moderate or liberal, or in places like Miami-Dade, blue counties. I know that your wife, Bridget Ziegler, she won her race there for school board in Sarasota. And 3 members that were endorsed by DeSantis, I believe, won there. So Sarasota goes from moderate liberal board to a conservative leaning board. So for parents, in practicality, if they end up with more conservative school boards across the state, what does that mean? What does that look like in the classroom?
So I don't think the word moderate should be used at all. These were actually school boards that were hard left school boards, and they were operating, frankly, in the shadows. And even in conservative counties like Sarasota County, we have over 50,000 more Republicans and Democrats, yet somehow we had a 3-2 staunch liberal school board. And they, again, like I said, they've been operating in the shadows. And what they've done is they've enacted policies that are radical, such as a child in kindergarten, and I had a kindergartner at the time when they put this in place, but a child in kindergarten in Sarasota County could decide their gender. And they were told that teachers are not allowed to tell parents, that it was the decision of that kindergartner to make, and parents weren't to be notified. That's just one example. And then you start bringing in how these liberal school boards have cracked down on parental public comment. In Sarasota, they actually moved the cameras from showing the parents to showing the back of their head when they talk. They cut them down from 3 minutes to 2 minutes because they were getting criticized. And anyone that criticized a school board member was getting dragged out by law enforcement. And that's in a Republican county. So what's going to happen now is you're going to see these conservatives that take over these school boards and they get in the majority. There's going to be a total reset on these school boards. And it's not like we're trying to jam conservative principles or policies through into these schools. All we're saying is get the politics out. Let's get back to focusing on education and respecting parents and partnering with parents and respecting taxpayers. So that's what you're going to see is parental involvement restored. You're going to see public comment and opportunity to be restored. And you're just going to see an overall respect come back to these school boards. And they're not going to be operating in the shadows any longer. I think there's a big spotlight. Governor DeSantis did a great job of shining that spotlight on these school boards. And I think going forward, that's going to be the expectation.
Well, I've got you here, and we're on the topic of education. I want to get you to weigh in on what you think about the Biden administration canceling student debt, college debt.
Complete insanity. First, plumbers shouldn't be paying for student debt that lawyers have accrued. There are a lot of people that didn't go to college because they couldn't afford it, or they found better opportunities by not going to college. They should not be forced to pay for anyone else's student loan. And really what just happened with this decision by Joe Biden is if you do not have a student loan, you now have a student loan. And that's the reality, because that cost has to come from somewhere, and he has put it on the backs of hardworking taxpayers across this country. And I know a lot of people that are close to paying off their student loans. I'm in my late 30s. That's around my age when people start finally paying them off, and they are tough. But at the end of the day, they worked hard their entire career. They didn't take vacations. They didn't buy that extra car so they could pay off their student loans. And now they're just wiping it for only a select number of individuals. And I think that all of us are going to be paying that. And it's just not fair. It's not right. It's not American, I don't believe. And hopefully people realize that if you did not have a student loan, today you do have a student loan.
It's going to be popular, though, with people that it benefits. In fact, the government website crashed as people were getting on to check to see what they had to do to take advantage of this. So as you go into the midterms, you know, there was talk a couple months ago about this big red wave. Oh, it's going to be more like a tsunami. Inflation's a mess. Biden's approval's down. But, you know, he's had these what he would tout as wins, including this. So has the tide turned on the midterms at all?
No. No way. And of course, people are going to go try to get quote unquote free money handed out by the government. But at the end of the day, they're going to pay for it, and we're all going to pay for it. And this is why we're seeing record inflation. And the president hasn't had big wins. What he's done is, with the stroke of the pen, he's canceling out this student loan debt for some people and transferring it on the backs of all Americans. And we even heard Nancy Pelosi, I believe, a year ago, say that the president doesn't have the authority or the right to do this, and that it has to go through Congress, and it's not going through Congress. So this is not a win by the Biden administration. I think the more people that realize this are going to reflect on it and realize, as I said, if you did not have a student loan yesterday, you now have a student loan today. And that's a big problem for Democrats. And look, you still look at gas prices. I mean, they're touting how much they've gone down over the last couple of weeks, but they set it at record pricing. And if you compare it to where we were under President Trump, the country was much better off. And I think all Americans will look at their mortgage payment. They'll look at their gas prices. They'll look at the cost of food at the grocery store. And they realize across the board, we were better off under a Republican president than what we have with a Democrat president.
And finally, just quickly here, as we head into the midterms, is Florida still purple? Are we still a swing state?
No. When Governor DeSantis took over, there were almost 300,000 more registered Democrats in the state of Florida. 4 years later, we have, I believe, 250,000 more Republicans than Democrats. So we've had about a 500,000 registration swing towards Republicans from Democrats. We were already winning statewide races, being down in registration. Now we're up, and this 500,000 extra votes is going to go a long way. And that's why you see Democrats across the country. They are talking about not spending money here. Charlie Crist is going to be a failed candidate, not investing in him. And so we're looking pretty good. People want freedom. The people that moved here after COVID are all moving here. They're conservatives, we've seen in polling and from feedback from them. They want freedom. They want to be able to live their lives. And Governor DeSantis has done a great job. And you see that with the registration. It is going to be very tough for Democrats to win anything statewide. And this might be the year, actually, that Democrats concede Florida and move on to some of these other states.
Christian Ziegler, Vice Chairman of the Florida Republican Party. Always good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you having me on. You have a great rest of your day.
You as well.